Dr. Richard Carrier, thank you for taking your time to answer questions on MythVision's Patreon. Caleb Reeder, thank you for joining the Patreon here. You're brand new today, actually, and you threw your questions in the basket, and we picked it out.
Awesome.
So here's his question, or questions. Is Gnosticism's view accurate? And then he follows up, I keep hearing people claim Jesus might have been trying to tell us about a higher consciousness. Does Gnosticism have any merit?
Yeah, so there's two levels to this. One is the historical question, which doesn't answer the question of what's true or not, metaphysically speaking. The sort of growing consensus now is that Gnosticism didn't exist, that this is actually a modern scholarly invention, that there was a huge diversity of views, but there wasn't any coherent thing that could be called Gnosticism. So historically, that's a more problematic question because you'd have to pick a specific sect or a particular document and say this document of this community is making this argument and talk about that. There's no like general Gnosticism. It turns out that was actually more of a fabrication of modern scholarship. And there's people who are interested in that. You can find on the Westar Institute has, not only do they have a document that has the report on why they concluded this, but they've also come out with a book recently that includes this discussion of why Gnosticism is really an obsolete concept. However, the concept of the higher mysticism thing, right, like stuff you get in Gospel of Thomas would be an example, right? There is some stuff like that. And we find like in the Nag Hammadi find and various other places, we do see some Christian mysticism. Some of that resembles Jewish mysticism, so it actually predates Christianity, really. And there's also, and some of it ties into Hellenistic mysticism, right? So there's similar ideas that travel through all of these different religions. That leads to the question of the historical reality. Now, of course, I'm a metaphysical naturalist. I think, no, none of that is true. I think I'm a mind-brain physicalist. I think the only way you can exist and have consciousness is if you have a wired-up physical system making you conscious. There's no second level to that. There's no way to exist without a brain of some kind, whether it's electronic or made of meat, it doesn't matter. So that's my view, and if people are interested in that question as to why I believe that and why I don't think these kinds of higher level of consciousness arguments are true, my book, Sense and Goodness Without God, is the place to start. But I'm also going to be doing a course with you, so you'll be offering naturalism as a worldview that will go through basically me talking about that book and its contents and how the arguments have held up over the years. So for that, if you want to see why my perspective is that way, that's the place to start once those courses are available, frankly.
Yeah, I definitely hope they'll check that out, especially when the questioner sounds like they're kind of like really believing in something here.
Genuinely, right. But they're asking a question of someone who doesn't believe this stuff. But this is a thing where I don't just casually not believe it, right? Like I used to be a Taoist, right? So I was a hardcore religionist, but not of the usual variety, right? Like people expect me to have been like an ex-fundamentalist or something. Mm-hmm. But no, I was not really a hardcore Christian ever. I was a hardcore Taoist, which is definitely a very mystical tradition. So I've gone through all of that and I've studied it really heavily. So I've come to my position after a thorough research of the facts and evidence and things like that. So I'm not just just some rando who just has an opinion. I've really tried to find out if there's anything to back things like that, and I really looked really hard, and the evidence doesn't hold up.
So first thing, I'm glad you point out the definition for Gnosticism isn't really the best category being used. Mm-hmm. It's a little dated.
Yeah, you gotta get more specific, right?
Right, mm-hmm. And then getting a little more specific. I've had scholars like M. DeVillett and others who join me, and they say that Paul uses language like there is an evil creator. It sounds like in 2 Corinthians 5:5, I think, or there's certain... I might have.
I disagree with that. Yeah, I think Paul definitely in 1 Corinthians 8, he very clearly understands Jesus to be the demiurge.
Right.
And so clearly he doesn't think Jesus is evil. So I don't think he's buying into the Marcionite thing. But that would be Marcionism, right? It comes later, where Marcion comes up with this idea that the creator is the evil God, and that the true God, and that's Yahweh, by the way, is the evil God, is Yahweh's the molder and the one who tinkers and makes stuff, and he screwed everything up. But the true God, that's the mystical. Well, you have to get access to the true God through some sort of mystical process to bypass this sort of meddling, halfway God. That starts with Marcionism, and the idea spreads to other sects. You get Valentinianism and other different sects. But if you're going to talk about these ideas, you really have to pick a specific sectarian doctrine specific books about it from that time and analyze like what was their belief and so on, rather than using broad categories like Gnosticism. That actually gets in the way of our understanding.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been videos done. I know that Neil over at Gnostic Information, he brought up the Naasene preacher, which I think was mentioned. I don't know if you've heard of it, but this guy, like, he does the most comparative Jesus to other gods type stuff, and he's not doing it in like a Justin Martyry type of way where it's like, well, the demon, the devil, Satan, you know, like he's actually like saying that these other gods are really almost like an ancient Baha'ism.
Well, it's like
way,
avatarism, right?
Right.
So you have the god has a different avatar in different centuries, etc.
It sounds like it was something like that. I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
I know that it's definitely heretical.
I wouldn't be surprised, right? Because that goes to really ancient Hindu thinking. So like Hindu philosophy has that kind of model and idea, and then that can easily diffuse into the Western cultures now, since we have such a global culture these days.
And Manichaeism was a thing. So there's all sorts
which spans the whole span from Eastern Mediterranean to India, right? So Manichaeism had its hand in everything and was influenced by everything. So yeah, so there's a lot going on in the world, and had been a lot going on in the world, more than people think. That's true.
Caleb Reeder, keep going. Thank you for checking out MythVision and joining our Patreon and having a question. I hope that your journey is a blast, because there's so much to learn, and have fun. Check out the courses when they come out, everybody. Join the Patreon at MythVision. And of course, Dr. Carrier, help support us in any way possible. We appreciate you.